In today's show, we discuss, is the dieting industry one giant ripoff?
And now, the TNT Talk Show, daring to go where other podcasts fear to tread.
Hello, I'm Tony Fasula, and I share the stage with my esteemed friend and colleague, Tayo Boya. Tayo, hello, my friend, once again. I hope you are keeping safe and well.
Yeah, what the hell, Tony? Do you know something? My pessimism has extended to the point now where I suspect the sincerity of other pessimists.
What are you doing for our audience? Come on, they tune in to be upbeat, lifted, motivated, inspired, and learn something new, but you just bring them down. What's going on?
And every Sunday, here we go, every time you just start with this optimistic sunshine thing. Never mind, let's just go on. Okay.
Anyway, let's move on. In today's show, we do discuss, is the dieting industry a giant ripoff? And we're very fortunate because with us today, we have a special guest to help us discuss this topic in more detail. We have a lady called Carol May, and she is described as the disruptive health coach. Now, I don't know any more, so Carol, please welcome to our show.
Hello, Carol, welcome.
Are you there?
Well, thank you. Yes, lovely to see you. Speak to you.
That's all right. Could you want to elaborate a little bit with this title? Because obviously our listeners probably don't know. What does the disruptive health coach do?
It's not just our listeners, pal.
Well, yeah.
Got no idea what that means either. So go on.
I want to stand out from other health coaches because I don't put anybody on a diet. I don't believe in dieting. Dieting doesn't work. I had a 50-year experience personally of trying to make my body smaller and researching why it doesn't work. And so now I work with other women who are in the same place as me, and they're frustrated. They just want to be healthy. And I believe health comes before size. And there's a lot of propaganda out there. There's a lot of misinformation, and there's a lot of pressure from medical professionals who are not trained in any of this, I might add, to be smaller. And being smaller is not a precursor of being healthy.
Okay. Can I just jump in very quickly? I mean, that's a really good point you've made, and you're right.
You quick?
Yeah, I wanted to jump in because Carol made a valid point about industry as a whole. Yes, they're the ones that seem to want to drive people to this size 6 or 8 size, whatever it is in the female world. That's something that people should be aspiring to when it's not really natural for the majority of females. I'm noticing here, however, Carol, that you seem to be female centric in terms of your weight. Does this not what your strategies apply to men too?
I wanted to actually, I've written it down. I wish we were on camera, I'd show you. I put point number 1 is casually sexist.
It's just that me personally, I work with women, but it applies to men just the same. And when I ran weight loss groups, I had men's groups as well. But men's weight and body issues are different from women. So we have to treat them slightly differently. But the generality applies. And I actually think probably the small percentage of people who keep their weight off are probably mostly men. For that.
Interesting.
So yeah. Do you not feel that women have other issues with weight, and particularly as they get older, because obviously there's this thing where you get over a certain age, you get through what's the term, where you have hormone changes, menopause, that's it, sorry. And that obviously plays a part, surely, for women. And men themselves, they lose testosterone. So
yes.
That also equally causes issues. So should it not be the same for both men and women in reality?
It doesn't work in quite the same way. Men have what we call andropause. And yes, your testosterone does very slightly start going down, but you are still fertile until the day you die. Women are not. And what happens with estrogen and progesterone and our own amount of testosterone is that it fluctuates on a minute by minute basis every single day as it's going down. So it causes, if you think of our own hormonal system, men or women, as like a very finely balanced mobile. And a man's mobile is very slowly kind of just maybe tweaking it ever so slightly, maybe one day, maybe not for another week. A woman's is going all over the flipping place all day, every day. And that affects our weight.
I was going to add something else. Does it also affect other?
I think what you were going to say is what Taya was thinking of. That explains a lot.
Yes. Yes. Oh, yes. Menopause is not a women only thing. Menopause is a man thing too, because most of us are in a relationship with a man.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it needs explaining to men, you know, exactly what's happening, because their partner, wife, girlfriend, whatever, doesn't suddenly not love them. She just doesn't want to go near them because she's got all this stuff going on inside. And she could be super, super hot as well. And it's like, no, don't want anybody around me. Don't come near me. Nobody. And so, you know, it can cause all sorts of issues in relationships. And my own marriage broke down during menopause. So, you know, but that was actually, I think, not to do with the menopause. My ex was actually an alcoholic. So I think there's probably more to do with it. But, you know, it can cause all sorts of issues. But the thing is, if you can get through that period, however long that is, and for me, it was 20 years. So, you know, buckle up, lads. This could be a bit of a roller coaster ride.
A 20-year-long menopause, really?
Yes, menopause journey, yeah, because the actual menopause is very small. It's the perimenopause, and then the symptoms can carry on post-menopause. So you can have, you know, a long period where you're experiencing symptoms. And then what happens is the lack of estrogen not only affects our weight and our self-esteem, then we don't want to be touched because it's like, oh, I'm not the woman you married. I'm ashamed of my body.
Unpretty. It was invented by a group, a pop group in the early 90s. But it's so apt, I think. It's a very succinct way of putting it, that the women can feel unpretty.
Yes,
and
I totally agree with that.
Okay. Let's. I mean, we're digressing ever slightly here from the idea of weight. However, this is an interesting tangent, because if we're saying that menopause obviously has a play on women in particular's weight, but then you're saying it's affecting men too, but not directly, indirectly. Are you saying therefore that if women are on a menopause, why is this not explained to men? Because men are expecting when they get married. Or
yes.
Aren't you digressing even more, Tony? Is that really
I am digressing even more, but it's quite an interesting subject, because it's linked, because you mentioned self-esteem. And self-esteem is something that's important, because that also affects, if our self-esteem is affected because our emotions all over the place, that's also linked to weight. Because if the weight goes up, our self-esteem drops even further. However, if we take care of our weight, that at least improves one pillar of the pillars that define our life. So that's one less problem that we have to deal with, which improves our self-esteem, and then may improve the relationship with our partner.
I was wondering, Carol, if you are blaming, because you started out by saying, yes, I think you did pour some degree of scorn on the dieting industry.
I did.
Now, Are you going to tell us that they are partly to blame for women feeling the way they do about their weight?
Yes.
Ah,
Because it sounded like you were saying it was more a biological thing. So menopause implies it, and then now we're blaming the dieting industry.
It's a combination, Tony. It is a combination of the food that is being produced at the moment, and it's a whole thing. So if you look at the whole thing, so I was born in the 1950s. Now at that time, women were just beginning to stand up and go, oh, excuse me, I don't have to wear a skirt. I want to wear trousers to work. This was my mother's thing when she worked at the BBC. So women were standing up. In the 1960s and 70s, we had the, burning the bras and all that sort of stuff, and women going, I'm as good as a man, and I can do this and I can do that. So men said, okay, then off you go. So women then took on top of everything else that they were doing, they took on full-time jobs. And then, so what they started doing was buying convenience foods that had been flooding the market in these new supermarkets that were being set up. But in these convenience foods are a load of, well, stuff we don't need, shall I say. And that's a whole other story, about the food industry and how it's corrupted our food. And so women who were short of time thought, oh, great, I can buy convenience food. So they started buying convenience foods. And that's when we start to see the flourish of the diets, the, eat low fat, don't eat carbohydrate, don't eat this, don't eat that. Oh no, we were wrong. Hang on a second, do this, do that, do the other. And what we get are, women feeling that everything is on their plate. And then they hit menopause, which, let's face it, back in the, before I was born, women didn't live long enough to have menopause. So, we're now hitting menopause and we actually don't know what it is, right? I had no idea when I was 44 and my hair was falling out. I had no idea what it was. And because I was depressed then, because I had postnatal depression, the doctor just gave me antidepressants. And that's where this whole thing of, if you go to the doctor in midlife complaining of anxiety and this and that and everything else, they used to give you antidepressants. That was it. And then it was, oh no, we could give you HRT.
What is HRT?
Hormone replacement therapy, but only on a certain basis. So they excluded a whole raft of women like me who had in the family certain medical issues like stroke, heart disease, cancer, that sort of thing. And they went, no, it's not safe. You can't take the pill, and no, you can't have HRT. So we had to just suffer our way through menopause. And there was nothing to guide us. There was nobody talking about it. There was no internet at the time. Nobody knew about this stuff. Meanwhile, we're buying more and more and more processed food. So what that has done is it has actually meant that as a collection, humanity is a collection of genes, and our genes are now expressed differently. So because we've fiddled about with them because of what we've added into our system. So what we then do is we then go on a diet because we're told we're too big. And that just adds even more stress to our system. And what stress does is, it makes us want to eat carbohydrate and high calorie comfort foods, but it also means that our body goes, okay, because our body is very primitive, and it'll go back into its primitive brain and it will go, okay, I'm under attack. Right, I better hold on to every single calorie that she eats in case there's no food in the coming months. So we put on even more weight, and it's fat. So we've got all of this stuff going into this. Meanwhile, you then get the internet up, social media, and all these people like, I don't know. I mean, I saw photos of, say, Davina McCall, in a skimpy outfit and everything in the paper. And I think, okay, yeah, fine. I'm absolutely fine with how she's dealing with her menopause, but don't tell me that that's how I should be looking, because that's not going to happen.
But can I jump in there?
Yeah.
I'm going to be devil's advocate here for a little bit. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Lifestyle has changed because, as you've rightly said, the dynamics of the family unit have changed, where women have had to go to work, not necessarily because just that they choose to, it's because they have to, because in the past prices were a lot lower, and if in a standard, in quotes, family back then, you had a breadwinner and then you had someone that would look after the home. But because now to purchase or live in a house costs so much, you have to have both parties having to go to work, and so the time element of cooking fresh nutritional food was reduced. So the convenience factor of buying food from a supermarket pre-made saved people the time and the energy to then to not have to cook it themselves. It's convenience, because the convenience came about because of the need, the fact that they were working away. They just couldn't do it. So this need was met by companies putting food in shops for our benefit. Now, if I'm going to put a hat on for someone selling the food, I want to make a profit. I want them to buy the food repeatedly. So I'm going to make it interesting and flavorful. But if it's sitting on a shelf, how do I do that? I know, I'll stuff it full of sugar and chemicals to keep it going longer. Now, this is all stuff that we've got used to because it's convenient in a store. So it makes sense from a seller's point of view, who's making that artificial food, in quotes, I'm going to use a word term. They are modifying the food in such a way so that it's got a shelf life. Otherwise, they don't have a business. Unfortunately, by making it sit on a shelf,
what's the point, Tony? What's the point?
The point is that convenience, we're blaming the diet industry because they're now jumping on the bandwagon that the supermarkets created an industry for the people who are busy working fast and hard. So they wanted that convenience. The convenience that was provided wasn't necessarily nutritionally sound, which clearly it wasn't, because as Carol has alluded to, the last 50 years, everyone's putting on weight across the whole Western world.
What's the point for Carol to answer?
Well, the diet industry have jumped in to try and give us quick fixes.
Okay, so over to Carol.
Yeah. So, and do you know what? Yeah, it can give you a quick fix, but the statistics say that most people, majority of people who start a diet will stop it after 6 days.
Weaklings then?
No, it is much more complicated than that, because what we've created is a society
of weaklings.
No, eating disorders and disordered eating. What we've created is a society of people who are addicts in some way. So when we're children, we don't have access to alcohol or drugs, cigarettes, so we choose food. So a lot of, I would say all the people that I work with started using, in inverted commas, food back in childhood. So what we're looking at, we're saying, okay, you've put on weight, so you have to eat less. And actually, it isn't just about that. It's way more complicated with a lot of people. And we are creating generation after generation of traumatized, hurt human beings who use food, alcohol, drugs, fast cars, smoking, all that sort of stuff to help them feel better and get through the day. And food is just one of those substances. So what we're doing is we judge people who are bigger, and yet if we knew what everybody else was doing in the drinking, smoking, drugs, sex, fast cars place, maybe life would be a bit kinder to everybody.
Isn't this an example of something that I harp on about? You see, you mentioned female liberation movement, and I am one of those men who are very, very skeptical about where we've reached today with female led movement. And I am actually saying I am no longer interested in hearing about equal rights. I, for some time now, say all I'm interested in hearing is equal responsibility. Everyone has got to take responsibility for their own actions. And when people start talking about addictions and the dieting industry and the fast food industry, it sounds to me like people are offloading their responsibility on someone else. Oh, it's not me, it's the fast food companies. Oh, it's not me, it's the diet company. It's like, look, no, actually, do you know what it is? It's you. You've got to step up to the plate. You've got to be serious about your own life. Stop looking around, stop blaming other people, and get down to it. And just do it.
Do you know what? I absolutely agree with you on that, because that's exactly what I did in my life. And because, what we've created is a society where people look outside of themselves for everything, because that's what clever marketing has created. So clever marketing says, if you feel like this, buy this. If you want to do that, buy that. If you want to grab the latest, the best girlfriend, have an iPhone, this and this car and a da-da-da-da and everything else. But we don't spend time teaching our children or ourselves how to be from the inside out, because everything's inside of us. Our body knows exactly what it wants to eat and when it wants to eat it. Our brain knows what it needs in any one moment. If children and their parents were all taught about the primitive brain and how that works, if we were taught to be more emotionally aware of why we feel how we feel, and that just popping a pill is not going to solve it, we actually have to do some hard work on ourselves.
Is that what you teach? Is that what
I teach?
Oh,
yeah.
I see.
That's exactly what I teach.
Can I
interesting.
Jump on there for one moment? You said something that our bodies know exactly what to eat when it wants to eat.
Yep.
That's okay. If that were true, then you wouldn't have this weight problem, surely. If it knew exactly what it wanted healthily, we wouldn't have a weight problem. What's happening is the body may be asking for food or sending signals, but the mind is interpreting those signals incorrectly and choosing what it can get quickly, as opposed to what the body needs. So I don't believe that that's 100% accurate. Yes, your body is hunger, but then is anybody actually hungry in the Western world? No. They think they're hungry, but they're not.
Well, let's find out what Carol thinks.
Yeah. So when we're born, we are born knowing exactly when we're hungry, when we've had enough, when we're tired, when we want a hug. That's all babies need, are those things, right? They know, and they tell you by crying, right? As they get older, and I have a 3-year-old granddaughter now, when she gets up at 6 a.m., she's starving because she slept for 12 hours. So she'll get up and she'll go, okay, eyes awake now, and eyes really hungry.
Eyes awake.
Right. So, yeah, okay, right, give me something to eat. An hour later, she'll go, eyes still hungry, right? So give her something else to eat. She loves eggs and all that sort of stuff. She might then go for 4 or 5 hours, but she might not. She might only go 3 hours before she goes, I'm hungry again, right? Because she's an intuitive eater at the moment. She can't read a clock. She's no idea what the time is. So she is just going on the messages her body is sending her, because she's still listening to them.
She's eating on demand.
Is we go to school, we then have to learn to eat by a clock. So we stop listening to what our body's saying. So we lose that ability to know when we're hungry. So we've been taught when you get up, you're supposed to have breakfast before you go out. Well, actually, I don't like breakfast when I just get up. I don't probably eat until about midday.
Same as you, Carol, actually.
Yeah.
Coffee's all I need in the morning.
But
Otherwise I have a grumpy head on like Tayo.
Yeah, but a child needs it. A child will tell you, they'll go, I'm hungry. So and there is a way, it's with kinesiology. I teach
It's with what?
It's with kinesiology.
You'll need to explain that for
Never heard of
me and our listeners, because I don't know what that is.
Okay, I'll go back to that. So with kinesiology, I teach my clients a really quick way, tapping into their body and asking it, is it hungry? Is it thirsty? Holding a food and saying, would you like this? And it will say yes or no. Now, I'm prepared for people to be cynical, but if I tell you that I did this at a networking meeting that was mostly men, and when I said we're going to play with food, they go, oh, good, can we eat it? And I went, no, you're just going to hold it in your hand. But when they did the first test and they either swayed backwards or forwards, it's called the sway, they went, oh, this is interesting. And they're busy grabbing food and playing with it and seeing what their body wanted and what it didn't. And you can use this test for lots of other stuff as well. But basically, there's a lot of top speakers who'll do a thing with people where they put their arm out and it's all about positive thinking. And if you put your arm out and you think a negative thing, they can push the arm down. If you put your arm out straight and you think positively, they can't. And that's kinesiology. It's totally connecting with the body, and body has all the answers. We are born with that wisdom, which we then disconnect with. So because we believe all the answers are outside of us, and they're not. The answers are all inside of us if we just went back inside. But people, what I find is a lot of people, they want a quick, instant fix. And I'm afraid there's no such thing.
I've looked it up, kinesiology, and I think it says here, kinesiology is another name for muscle testing.
Yeah,
so
muscle testing.
If I understand it, what you're saying is you hold the food and you sway back and forth, and then you listen to what your muscles are telling you, which is a way of being told how your subconscious, let's say, I'm throwing subconscious in whether right or wrong, your subconscious feels about it, and then based on your feedback, you then go ahead and know whether you can eat it or you should leave it.
Yep.
Okay, that's very interesting. I've never heard that before.
No, I've never. Can I ask a question regarding this exercise that you've described? The food, was it packaged? Was it raw?
No, not necessarily. Could be anything. In a jar, in a packet, anything. Somehow it always seems to work.
And the people are influenced by looking at it, or have they got their eyes shut?
They got their eyes shut.
So they can't even know what the food is?
No, they just got their hand out with it.
Can you describe from start to finish, just because you said you went to a networking event and then you got the men to stand up?
Yep.
Then what? Okay, so just walk us through what happened, please.
They stand up straight, knees are soft, hip width apart, eyes closed, right?
Right.
And put their hand out and you put a food in it.
Okay.
With their eyes closed, they ask their body, do they like this? Yes or no? And normally, if they sway forward, it's yes. And if they sway backwards, it's no.
Interesting.
And they don't have any idea what the food is at all?
No.
So what are they reacting to?
It's their body. It's their body reacting. They're not consciously reacting to anything.
What's the body reacting to?
It's the body reacting.
To what? It doesn't know what it doesn't know what. How would it know whether it wants something it can't see or smell or whatever? I mean, it could be anything. It could be a rock in a plastic bag.
You could have put. How do you know it's food? They don't know.
Yeah. I can't explain that. All I know is it works.
It's a bit magical.
So yeah, so
It is.
are we saying therefore that everybody, okay, I'm going to move this forward. Are we saying therefore before you want to eat something, you've got to sort of hold it in your hand, rock backwards and forwards, and then decide whether it's something you wish to eat?
No,
No.
you don't rock backwards and forwards.
Well,
You
okay,
see
rock
whether
backwards
and
you
forwards.
see whether you rock.
You
go forward or back.
backwards or forwards, right? But I use that initially to show my clients that they have a connection to their body and that their body will speak to them if they listen. Now, the more they do this, the more practice they get. So now I don't have to do that. I can just sit here and ask my body, is it ready for breakfast yet? And although I'm sitting, it will move backwards or forwards.
Okay, I got up to my feet.
Mm-hmm.
I stretched my arm out, and then I put a bag of what is this? Honey and lemon menthols. I put that bag in my hands. And what I'm doing, I find that I'm swaying backwards and forwards. So what the hell does that mean?
Oh.
I'm swaying both ways.
Oh.
By the way, audience, I said I'm swaying both ways. I don't want anybody writing in and said Tayo swings both ways.
Okay.
Listen
Right, let's
carefully.
get this back on point here. Now look, the
So what does that mean though? Is
Yeah.
that a false experiment because
That means
my eyes were open?
We need to calibrate you. So
Okay, what's that?
we have to do some more work around that. Yeah.
Oh, okay, like how? Give us. I mean,
Well, we first of all, if you just stand up straight, knees bent, feet properly flat on the floor, bed
yes,
preferably.
it's all true.
Yeah, close your eyes and just say, "Is my name Carol?" and see which way you go.
Okay, believe it or not, I'm going forward. That's ridiculous.
But you may be reversed, right?
Probably.
Skit if your name is Teo.
My God, I went backwards.
There you go. You're reversed, right? So
That's amazing. Tony, you do it. Can you stand?
I've got a dodgy hip, so this could be
Oh,
really
poor
difficult.
guy. Yeah,
But
sorry.
I'm going to try. I'm going to humour
Tony.
you.
No, it's not excuse.
I'm having a hip replacement on Wednesday this week, so it's
No.
not.
okay.
It's
It's not a
genuine.
dodgy. Okay, so what's the point? I stand up.
Yeah. As straight as as loose as you can.
Okay. Yep.
Feet flat on the floor, arms at your side.
Yep.
Close your eyes.
Okay.
And just say, "Is my name Carol?" and see which way you sway.
Is my name Carol? I'm not swaying at all.
Do you feel a pressure on your heels or your toes?
On my toes, slightly.
Okay, so
Is my name Tony?
mhm.
Now I'm pressing on my toes. That's interesting.
Okay. So
Maybe that could be because I've got a dodgy hip and I'm not standing
It
quite
might
as
be.
straight as I should be. Okay, I humoured you there. That was fine. I mean, what's the point of this exercise? How does this relate to, or is this just a learning to try and get us to listen more to our bodies? Is that what you're doing this
Yes.
for? Is that all this is
Yes.
for? Okay. And we still haven't touched on the reason why the diet industry is still corrupt, or why we're
she's explaining her method, which is what I'm interested in.
yeah, okay.
I'm
not-
interested because
I'm not-
what you're doing is, Carol, what
Yeah.
you're doing is you're finding a different way from the normal just diet thing. That seems to be what you're saying, which is very interesting to me.
Yeah.
It's
So-
interesting. It's a different angle for sure. And if
Yeah.
it works, then revelation. There's something here.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Does it work,
So,
Carol? What are your numbers?
Yeah. So, well, I dropped 44 pounds in weight without dieting.
How long did that take?
About 2 months.
2 months
Yeah.
without dieting.
Without dieting. I was doing a lot of the internal work at the same time, right? So this isn't something but I get most of my clients will probably drop 10 pounds in the first week and then up to 16 pounds after 3 or 4 weeks.
And this is just by handling food.
This is by doing the sway test and listening to what their body wants. So usually what their body doesn't want is sugar and what I call simple white carbohydrates. So when it says no, it's about finding an alternative. What else can they eat? So we discuss that, obviously. There are lots of alternatives out there now. And what we also do is we do the deep work. I'm a therapist as well. I'm an eating disorders therapist. And so, what I need to know is what's going on underneath all of this? Where's the trauma been? And, when I get a client who after 4 weeks suddenly drops into the conversation that she was raped as a teenager, oh, yes, right, okay, there's a lot going on here. So it isn't ever just about the food. And I think that's the mistake that comes from the dieting industry, is that it's always saying, if you just ate less and moved more, you'd be thinner. It's not as simple as that.
Life really is.
I mean, the idea you say that you don't crave sugary things, how true is that? Because I myself crave sugary things, and I'm not necessarily really overweight now. I was a bit more before, but I still have, oh, you know what? I really want that chocolate.
Yeah. And you know what? Have it. That's not something that, I always say to people, have that, but make sure it is of good quality. So for instance, what I found when I gave up sugar because of my arthritis, right? Sugar causes inflammation in the body. If you have a genetic tendency towards something like arthritis, which my whole family are riddled with it, it's going to make it worse. So, the pain of the arthritis in my joints is so bad that I gave up sugar. But
are you sure you've made that link? And is there any
there's
evidential
science
linked? Because
yes,
that's why I'm having a hip replacement this very week, because of arthritis. And I'm not a great sugar eater. So.
But were you in the past?
No, not really.
Okay.
Unless you count pasta as sugar, which I did eat when I was growing up.
Yes. Yeah. Pasta, white pasta, is just sugar in the body. Your body just turns it into glucose. That's all pasta is. Pasta, rice, flour, so bread and white potatoes. They are all metabolized purely as glucose in the body.
The body uses that as quick fuel.
Sometimes. What I'm going to say here is there is no one size fits all. And that is something else that's wrong with the dieting industry, is they go, follow our diet, you'll be fine. Not necessarily. So what we need to do is look at our self, our lifestyle, the food we like, how active we are, what our genes are. So we look at the rest of the family, and then, so we look at all the physical stuff, and then look at the emotional stuff, and then fit it all together like a jigsaw puzzle. So there is no one size fits all. So what I am doing may not suit you. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's about finding what suits you as opposed to anybody else out there. It's creating your own way of eating and living and being, irrespective of what anybody else says and irrespective of what size your body is.
You mentioned something earlier on, which you touched on, about the self-esteem element. Now, this has been created in society as a whole, that people do not feel great in their skin. Literally.
Yeah.
Their self-esteem. But if they feel better by losing the weight, however they choose to do it, mind you, because all diets generally work in a short period of time, if people stick to it, as Ty said, or you said, I think 6 days. But if people stick to a diet and they have the resolve to stick to the diet, they will lose weight. And generally, health-wise, if you've lost weight, that's a benefit to the body. Less strain, less fat around organs. So it is a benefit to lose weight, however you lose it. But I think what's missing in the diet industry is the fact that they want you to lose the weight, but then they don't look at the underlying problem that made you put the weight on in the first place. So people then, once they've stopped the diet, they then put the weight back on because they're just using the old habits to put the weight on in the first place. So I know the ultimate goal is for people to feel good in their skin and be healthy at the same time, because being overweight, you might feel good in your skin, but it isn't the most healthy condition to be in. So really, you want to feel good in your skin, but at the same time, lose weight too. So there's two different things. The feeling good about yourself is in your head, but equally that will then help you deal with the weight loss and be happy in your skin once you've reached a reasonable healthy weight, but not be obsessed about what industry tells you about weight and what you should look like. You get to a size that you're happy with and you feel good in your skin, but then you then put in place the actions to replace the reasons why you put the weight on in the first place. Am I right?
What if you do that in reverse? You're not, I don't think you're right. No, I don't think you're right at all, because 98% of people put on all the weight and more. So no, diets.
What, after following a diet and then not changing their actions?
Well, because that's what most people do. They don't.
That's what I'm saying. This is the flaw in the diet industry. They only do one part of it.
Nothing to do with the diet industry. It's to do with how we feel about ourselves. So what we think is we think, I will be happy when I lose the weight, I have that car, I live in that house, I have a husband, I have a wife, whatever it is. Do you know what? You can choose to be happy right now, in this very moment. You can choose to be happy in your skin right now.
Absolutely. But
that's the key.
Absolutely, that is the key. But that takes time. I'm outside of this. I'm a motivational speaker. I talk on stage about this very subject, not necessarily weight loss, but just changing your way, the way you behave. You can change things. The past, you can't change the past. It's just a memory. You learn from that. You can change from today. So, but getting to that point, the past shapes a lot of what you've done. And that's the problem. It affects our mind in such a way that we struggle to let go. And that's the challenge. But unfortunately, the weight gain and other factors, alcoholism, other addictions, are caused because of the pain, as you've already alluded to, that's come from the history in your life. But it doesn't define you. It doesn't make you who you are. You have to deal with it, because today's the first day of the rest of your life. So whatever you've done up to now, it's the past. You can change it from now on. The book hasn't been finished. So yes, you have to change your thinking, absolutely. And that does take time and takes effort, because you have to replace all those poor thoughts that you've accumulated over time, which have then induced the weight gain. So it's a double whammy. You have to fix the brain.
Is there a question here at the end of a long trek?
Well, it's not about fixing the brain. It's about healing past trauma. And that is very different. Trauma work is now done. Somatic body healing is trauma work. And it's done within the body. And it's done using the body. And it's done connecting to the body. And it's got nothing to do with how much you weigh, or where you live, or how much money you have. It's about healing first. And if people learned that the fix was not outside of them, like dieting, alcohol, fast cars, the way to sort ourselves was from the inside.
Absolutely.
And that they actually do that work first.
Oh, indeed. If you fix your mind, then the weight doesn't become a problem. I totally agree with you. However, you also have external factors that affect the internal. And unless you have a shield around yourself, which most people don't, they absorb and take in what happens around them. And that has an influence on them psychologically and in their mind.
They can do, but actually you can work out how not to take it all on.
Oh, well, absolutely. It's a skill.
Because that's what I've done.
Yeah.
I've never seen a pair of individuals who supposedly agree with one another disagreeing so firmly. It's like he says, yeah, that's right. And you go, yeah, that's right. And yet you're saying different things. So
it's along the same lines, Tayo.
It's along the same lines, but from a different angle. And
see, it's along the same lines, but no, yes. The introduction of the word but means it's not along the same lines. Because otherwise you would have said but, you'd have said and. There's the conjunction that would have been used.
Okay.
Here it is. Carol is coming from a place, seems to me, where her solution starts from the inside and works its way out. Tony's got this kind of holistic thing, which is all kind of airy-fairy and nice and optimism, and the sun is going to shine and grass is going to grow and we're going to do this. And at the end of the day, I don't actually know what the hell he's saying. But he seems to be saying something like, if you start a diet and you're happy with yourself, you will stay on the diet. However, Carol, and the stats, I think, in my opinion, intuitively, I think Carol's stats would bear out the reality of the thing, is that that just doesn't happen. It sounds nice. It sounds the sort of thing a motivational speaker would say. But in real life, what happens is people start a diet, and in real life, people stop, like me. Like my wife, and she's going to kill me for saying. She's going to kill me for saying that in public. Okay. Like almost everybody I know.
Tayo, do you have somebody that is in your corner, like a Carol?
Negative.
There you go. That's your problem.
Oh, except newly me.
What do you mean by that? Newly me?
Because I have recently made up my mind, having dropped weight and put it back on again when I was chomping down on chocolate bars like there was no tomorrow. I finally said to myself, do you know what? I'm a food addict. Well, at least a sugar addict or something. I just love chocolate bars. And enough is enough. I've said it. I'm saying it now in public. Enough is enough. I always berate people for their weakness. So I'm not going to be weak. When I say this is it, believe me, this is it. It's done.
Fantastic.
Never going to happen again. I've had it, and I've been taking pictures of my weight every single day, and it's going down.
Which is exactly what Carol and I are saying.
No,
you're fixing your mind. You've become resolute, and you said, right, enough's enough. People have to get to that point somehow. It's either something drives them insane that they have enough. That's it. Line in the sand. I'm not going back. Okay. Now, sometimes it takes a C event, SEE, serious emotional event that hits people during their lifetime where they draw this line in the sand. And that tends to happen. It's like a turning point in a life. And this is what happens. And people make a decision. It's a shame that we humans mostly make decisions that way when we hit one of these C moments, SEE. That's when we change our thinking. When we're sick and tired of being sick and tired, we're fed up of being fed up. Right, that's it. I've had enough. And you then make a decision, and that decision is a good one. But it takes a lot of people aren't at that point. A lot of people are not at all. So they have to be brought along and have to be shown that way. And in your case, Tayo, you've made a decision, right? You're not going to do it. That's a resolute, determined decision. That means you may stick to it. But there's a lot of people out there that need someone in their corner, someone to hold their hand like a small child, to lead them, help them, advise them. Carol's one of these people. You need a Carol in your life. Most people do, just to hold your hand and ensure that they're in your corner, even just a text away, a phone call away, to help you on your journey.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Tony. And I think what the problem is, we've been taught that we should be able to sort this on our own, and we can't. We can't do that. We're not able to. It takes a village to raise a child. Well, it also takes a village to support an adult. You know, we all have a broken, traumatized, sad inner child, and we cannot learn to reparent that child on our own. We need support for that. And I think the mistake that the dieting industry is making is going, you just need to eat less and do more. No, way too simplistic. And so we're creating a whole society of people who feel rubbish about themselves because they go, oh, I've got no willpower, I can't stick to a diet, when it's absolutely nothing to do with that at all.
You see, you've made a great point, but let's put the diet and industry hat on now from a commercial point of view.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, they are not totally interested whether you succeed or not.
Then they're totally not interested.
No. Well, they want some success because they want to show that what their methods do work. So you can't not be. If you look at their success things, they're like 3 months or maybe maximum 6 months. What you don't hear are people who 5 years on are still at a. Well, I think you could look for examples in all diets that people have succeeded. So that's how they keep their business model running. If they can't show any sort of success, then people won't follow it. So they're going to show
there's
you
no
success.
long-term excess.
Well, that's different. That's cooking the books. Yeah.
No, because weight cycling, which it means
yo-yo dieting,
down on a yo-yo, is actually worse for your health than not losing the weight at all. And that scientific paper is out there. And I think that, you know, people need to realize that health comes first.
Health is wealth.
Some of the stuff we've been told is nonsense. It's not true. And
then could you elaborate for our listeners? Because obviously our listeners may be intrigued by that. Yeah. What's not true? What's
not true is that being in a larger body means you will get that illness, because people in a smaller body also get that illness. So being in a larger body, we've been told, makes us more likely to be sick. And actually, statistically, it doesn't. The healthiest women in the world, and this was done from a study of 60,000 women in California. Well, the research team was based in California, but 60,000 women with a BMI, and I'm not going to say what I think BMI means. I told Teo what it is, but you know.
Please say it, because a lot of our listeners say what it actually stands for and tell us what you think it stands for.
What I think it stands for is bullshit, misleading, and inaccurate.
You see.
And what's the real term?
So it's body mass index. What it's saying is the relationship between your weight and your height. It's a mathematical thing which has nothing to do with health. Doctors have taken it on as that, but actually it's meaningless, because 10 years ago, a healthy BMI was labeled at 27.5. Let me see. They're now saying it's 25. Don't think so. That's a load of rubbish for a start. And if I had a BMI of 25, I would look anorexic at my height. So, you know, it is not a realistic thing at all. The healthiest women who lived the longest without any illness had a BMI between 25 and 35. Least healthy women had a BMI over that or under that. And those two groups had the most illness and the earliest deaths.
I'm mindful we're getting close to the end of the show, but I do want to ask Carol something else about the BMI indicator. The BMI indicator isn't an exact spot on figure. It's a rough figure, and it's meaningless. Meant to be. Well, it's I think that's rather harsh, because it does give you a rough idea of what you should be like. It's not entirely
Who
accurate.
says? Who says?
Because genuinely, if you are obese, like you said, over a certain size, then you may not know what you should be aiming for. But what the problem is that people seem to indicate you should be this. No, you should be within
You're
a
using
range
a lot of
this.
shoulds as well. You're using a lot of shoulds, and actually take should out of it. You change the word should. Take it
right. I'm saying what they tell. I'm not advocating this. They say you should be this, but in reality, it's a shades of grey. There's no absolute. I'm not a black and white person.
No.
The world is made up of grey, shades of it. Tayo's a black and white person. I'm not. It's what's good for you individually.
Yes. Personally, yes.
But you aim in and around that figure, what you feel comfortable with. You don't want to go, well, actually, my aspiration is 35 BMI, because clearly that still has a lot of weight. So you've got to look at the range. You go, okay, it's roughly in that range. I'll try and head towards that. And that's what you should try and be comfortable with.
Why?
So you're healthy.
Why should you aiming to change your body size? Because it's got nothing to do with health and how long you're going to live.
You see, Carol, and you see, Tony, this is what I was going on about. This is what I tried to point out to you, that when Tony and Carol said they agree with one another and they're traveling parallel roads, they are not. What Carol is saying is that if you're working from the inside out, your body will choose its own happy weight. That's what Carol is saying. And you, Tony, you say, yeah, but, and then this but of yours goes in the exact opposite direction. And you say, listen to the BMI, which is exactly what she is not saying.
That's not what I'm saying. It's your guide. It's like your sat nav. I want to go to London. I'm putting my sat nav.
Carol is saying, forget the sat nav.
She
said the car will take you where it's going. That's in the metaphor.
I'm sorry, but that is silly.
Now we've got the truth of the matter that you guys fundamentally disagree.
Right.
Finally.
You have to have some direction in life. If you don't have a direction, how do you know you're going anywhere?
Because your body does, according to Carol. That's the point.
Because the direction is how you feel, how healthy you feel, how energetic you are. It has nothing to do with the number on the scale.
Excellent.
Ridiculous thing called BMI.
Indeed.
To do with how you feel.
Indeed, but I'm going to say but, because I agree with most of that. However, look, BMI is irrelevant for a weightlifter, for instance. It's irrelevant for sports people. But that's what not everybody fits that. Who's a weightlifter?
BMI is ridiculous for everybody. It's never been before now touted as a means of assessing health. It was never developed like that. It was developed by a mathematician in Belgium back in the 1800s, and it was never meant to be used as a way of assessing health.
So what was it for?
It was a mathematical thing, and I can't remember off the top of my head.
Right. It was just a rough indicator. That's all it was. So we can't poo-poo it. You can say it's not accurate and people shouldn't follow it to the nth degree, which is correct.
It is bullshit. It is
for someone who calls it bullshit something, and you say they can't call it that you just did.
Listen, unfortunately, we could go on for hours on this topic because it is a good topic. Carol, thank you for joining us today. I hope you've enjoyed it. We've had some good banter.
Yeah.
Very much.
Brilliant. We loved having you on the show. Thank you.
Thank you.
But unfortunately, we have reached the end of the show for another week.